On today's edition of Cronkite Sports Live, Arizona State baseball is hot. We have all the action from its recent major victory.
Plus, lots going on in the postseason for ASU men's basketball. We're talking about the state of the program and what's next for the team.
Finally, the new-look Sun Devils on the gridiron seem to be having loads of fun at spring practice. We've got a brand new segment today to highlight all of that. Stick around for that and so much more on this edition of Cronkite Sports Live.
Fridays are awesome because it means we got another edition of Cronkite Sports Live coming at you to make your day even better. Welcome to Studio 6, everyone. He's Ethan Tuttle. I'm Kevin Miller. And Ethan, we got so much to talk about today. Baseball in full swing, men's basketball just wrapped up their season, and so much more.
Man, we've got sports that happened all over the campus, so I'm excited to get our audience updated on everything ASU sports related. Let's go ahead and hop right into it, man.
And we'll start with the highlights of ASU baseball. Wednesday saw Arizona State hosting 25th ranked GCU exactly 1 year after the Lopes came to Phoenix Muni and upset the Sun Devils, and the Devils got hot right away. Down 1-0 in the bottom of the first. New Contreras coming through with the RBI double down the left field line. It was part of a 3-run first inning for the Sun Devils. They would start off on top 3-1 through 1. Then New Contreras comes up again and comes up in a very different spot to score a run. He swung and missed here to pitch for strike 3. Due to the drop third strike rule, though, he'd be thrown out at first base. However, Luke Keishel came and stole first home and slid in safely to make it 4-1, adding on a big insurance run for the Sun Devils. Bottom 5, Ryan Campos smacks a triple to deep center field off the base of the wall. It was a great night for him. He already had a homer and a double at that point. That triple, he just finished a homer shy of the cycle. 2 more runs would score for ASU. They led 6-1 through 6. Bottom 7 now. We got a little bit of heart and hustle for you. Isaiah Jackson, the speedster, beats a weakly hit ground ball down the first baseline. He beats the sidearm southpaw to the bag, and it tacks on a run for Arizona State. It was 7-1 midway through the bottom of the 7th inning. In the very next batter, the Lopes shoot themselves in the foot yet again as Emilio Barreras throws one into left field, bringing several Sun Devils around the bases to score in what eventually became a 5-run 7th inning. The Devils would play 11 on the night to avenge last year's home loss. Willie Bloomquist, what do you got for us?
You know, it's important for our program to play well, especially against our in-state rivals. And this was the first test we had against our in-state opponents. So, like I said, pleased with how we responded and how we played today. That was a good statement. And but any extra motivation? No, it's a different team. Last year's last year. We're trying to turn the page on that one, but we come out and play like we did tonight. We got a shot.
So make it 7 of the last 8 for the Sun Devils in the win category. And as you heard, Ethan, the focus is on staying hot for the weekend, and rightfully so.
Yeah, Arizona is in town, and man, there's no build-up needed for this game. I mean, everyone in the state knows what this series means to not only the coaches and the players on the field, but as well as the students in the stands. So to help preview the Wildcats in Game 1 tonight, here's Aiden Blank.
It's the Sun Devils and the Wildcats all weekend long in the Territorial Cup at Phoenix Municipal Stadium. Let's talk about U of A. They lost last weekend 3 straight. They got swept by UCLA in Los Angeles, but they rebounded at home at 11-2 victory on Tuesday against Utah Tech. Offensively, the team has combined for 25 home runs, and Kiko Romero leads the Pac-12 with 17 extra base hits. Defensively, they scored a .978 fielding percentage. Remember, GCU gave up 3 errors on Wednesday night. That was a big help for ASU as they scored 11 runs. So Sun Devils going to face a little bit better defensive team this weekend. Maybe not going to be able to capitalize on all of those mistakes. Tonight's starter for Arizona is TJ Nichols. Now, last season, he started against Arizona State in a playoff game, the elimination game they played in the Pac-12 tournament. He gave up 7 hits, 4 earned runs over 6 innings pitched, and threw to a no decision. So certainly going to be looking forward to a great rivalry this weekend. Couple of alumni coaching their 2 teams, couple of second-year coaches managing for the second year in the Territorial Cup. How can you beat this? ASU and U of A all weekend long. Certainly looking forward to seeing what the Wildcats bring to Phoenix. Let's send it back to the studio.
Thank you, Aiden. First pitch will be at 7 o'clock later tonight.
Now in the studio today, we have our own Blake Neiman to give us a look at some of the most recent trends in ASU baseball statistics. Blake, what do you got?
Yeah, there's no question that Arizona State's batting lineup has been sensational this year, with a team batting average of over 300 and double-digit hit totals in 6 of their last 8 games. The Sun Devils are among the hottest teams in the Pac-12. One key feature that has made this lineup so lethal is its depth. 9 players on ASU's roster are hitting over 300, with the top leaders being Luke Keechel and Ryan Campos, who are each hitting over 500 over this winning stretch, in which the Sun Devils have won 7 of their last 8 games. While the lineup has been consistent and dependable, the pitching staff has been more of, well, a roller coaster ride. Last weekend in ASU's Pac-12 opening series against Utah, the rotation gave up an abysmal 23 earned runs, countered by 20 strikeouts over 3 games. Compare that to the Sun Devils' 4 single-game midweek matchups, and the pitchers have nearly doubled their strikeout total at 39, as well as cut their ERA in half, with only 11 runs earned across such games. The proof's in the numbers. If Arizona State can translate its midweek magic to the weekend series, they'll be in good shape. Now, let's swing it back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks, Blake. Kevin, I think he nailed it. When you have 2 guys in the lineup like Campos and Keechel who can hit consistently at the plate, they're hitting over 500, just terrific stuff there. You got to like your odds no matter who you're playing on the diamond.
Exactly. Willie Bloomquist has to be thrilled about that. But if we flip it to the softball side for Megan Bartlett's side, consistency has not been easy for the Sun Devil softball squad to find at times this season. And at times they've looked like they're 2 completely different teams. To keep it rolling with By the Numbers, we toss it over to WCSN softball reporter Grace Johnson.
Thanks, guys. At the beginning of the season, the Sun Devils started off hot, but since their Pac-12 opener, their bats have started to trail off. Dating back to last season, ASU had scored a run in 56 consecutive games, until they played Arizona on March 10th. Since playing the Wildcats, they've had 4 games where they have failed to put up a run. Overall, the program is 17-8, but after taking a closer look, the Sun Devils are undefeated against teams with a losing record, but just 4-8 against schools with a winning record. The team currently has a .312 batting average. However, when they've played against teams with a winning record, they're only batting .225 as opposed to .378 against teams under 500. So, what does this mean? It tells us that regardless of the talent of opposing pitchers, the Sun Devils are hitting the ball hard against all-around bad teams and struggling against overall superior teams. Meanwhile, in the field, a similar trend exists. Defensively, the Sun Devils have performed stronger against inferior teams, committing only 14 errors, whereas they have recorded 20 errors against winning teams. Looking at the rest of ASU's schedule, every team the Sun Devils play going forward has a winning record, meaning that Arizona State is going to have to get back on track and defy the numbers if they want to be able to compete in the Pac-12. Guys?
Hey, thanks, Grace. It'll be interesting to see which Sun Devils show up this weekend up in Berkeley, where they face the Cal Golden Bears. And speaking of the Golden Bears, they've eclipsed the 20-win mark already. And to help us introduce them to you all, here's WCSN's Max Cepeda.
The Golden Bears of Berkeley, California have had an impressive start to their 2023 campaign. Although the team was picked 7th in the Pac-12 preseason poll, the Golden Bears already seem to be overachieving. The Bears leapfrogged ASU in numerous categories as they now lead the Conference of Champions in homers with 41 and doubles with 50, even while having the second worst team average in the conference at 309. At the plate, they are led by senior catcher McKenna Smith, who is currently batting .329 and is 3rd in the Pac-12 in homers with 9. She also has one of the lowest strikeout rates in the conference. Meanwhile, in the circle, Haley Archer has been the Golden Bears' biggest weapon. In nearly 60 innings pitched, she has the 6th best ERA in the conference at 191, but similar to much of ASU, her walk numbers have been abysmal as she holds 27 free passes, the second most in the Pac-12 and just as many as ASU freshman Kylie McGee. So while it won't be easy in some ways to overcome a Golden Bears team that has been receiving votes in many nationwide polls, this could be the Sun Devils' first legitimate shot to beat a quality opponent and make some noise as the calendar nears April. However, what will be a major question as the Sun Devils arrive in Berkeley is which team will show up. The ASU squad that wrecked non-conference opponents at the start of the campaign, or the non-existent group that appeared during their series against rival Arizona and in the Oklahoma State Mizuno Classic. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks, Max. Shifting our focus now to ASU men's basketball. We got some developing news this morning as guard DJ Horn entered the transfer portal. He joins Jemiah Neal, Enoch Boakye, and Lufer Muhammad.
These players hitting the portal just shortly after their round of 64 exit in the NCAA tournament. Horn and Neal especially, Kevin, some of the key pieces this past season for ASU.
So if these players or any other players decide to opt out into the transfer portal, Bobby Hurley will need to do some portal recruiting of his own like he did a season ago. But if there's any other indication, Hurley's here for the long haul, a 2-year contract extension that he signed on Tuesday, which will keep him in Tempe through 2026.
Yeah, unfortunate that ASU got bounced from the big dance as early as it did, but to help us check up on the Sun Devils stock throughout the entire season, here's Anthony Remedios.
Well, now that we know that Coach Hurley has been extended, let's take a look back at how the team's stock levels roller coastered throughout the past season. November 17th marked the first major victory of the season for ASU, a 25-point upset win over then number 20 Michigan, in which 4 Sun Devils each finished with double-digit points. That win was the second of a 9-game win streak that earned ASU its only ranking of the season at number 25. How about that? Then came the USF game, where the Sun Devils were victims to one of college basketball's biggest blowouts of the season, 97-60. But despite the beatdown in San Francisco, the Devils got started with an impressive 15-3 overall record and 6-1 in Pac-12 play as they welcomed the number 5 UCLA Bruins to Tempe. With the Pac-12's number 1 seed on the line and Coach Hurley's best start at ASU, the Devils ended on a 16-2 run in the game's final 3 minutes and defeated the Sun Devils 74-62. The first game of a 4-game losing stretch for the Sun Devils. Now, the next month was largely inconsistent for Hurley and his squad, but let's fast forward to February 25th in Tucson. Sun Devil stock rose once again when Desmond Cambridge Jr. single-handedly sunk the Arizona Wildcats on this buzzer beater from beyond half court. Ultimately, a deep run to the semifinals of the Pac-12 tournament earned ASU an 11-seed play-in game against Nevada, which turned out to be their best performance of the season and a dominant 98-73 victory before falling to TCU at the last second in the round of 64. So with a fair amount of positives to look back on from the season, here's what Bobby Hurley felt about that following the loss to TCU.
You know, between the Arizona buzzer beater and the run in the Pac-12 tournament and winning probably one of the biggest games in your time here against Nevada the other night, there's certainly been a lot of positives up until this moment, and certainly a great game played tonight. Where do you feel that the state of this program is entering, you know, the offseason and trying to get back here to the tournament after a really good run?
Did you watch the game? That's the state of the program.
Kevin, Arizona State hasn't necessarily been known as a basketball school at like maybe any point ever. I mean, there's been some successful teams, yes, but none that really jump off the pages. This team was able to prove some doubters wrong, but is this truly the ceiling for ASU basketball? Round of 64 exits in first 4 games?
I don't know, Ethan, but whether the program has been getting better or not, everyone will tell you that this is a results business. And the results show that ASU hasn't made the round of 32 since 2009 when a guy by the name of James Harden, you may recognize him, was a sophomore leading the way for the Sun Devils.
Well, it's tough to get results when you don't feel like you're getting a lot of support. ASU President Michael Crow recently spoke to the state press saying, quote, "You've been there. It's completely functional. It's actually a fine facility and just needs some updates." That facility is completely functional. It does not determine if we win basketball games at all. Calvin, I want to get your thoughts and your first reactions to this statement.
Well, it might be a fair rebuttal for Michael Crow to say that, but when you're trying to continuously grow and build a program like Arizona State is, recruiting matters. And a big draw to these recruits is the kind of the state-of-the-art facilities that you have and what they can do for them, the athlete. So a building like DFA may be functional, but when you're thinking about it, it's not actually functional, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Kevin, President Crow saying ASU doesn't need any type of facility upgrade is like me walking into a computer engineering class today with a laptop from '06, Kevin. It's just not going to get the job done. ASU's going to have to find a way to bring guys in despite the issues with the facility because the guy with the power, with the say, he's not having it right now.
Yeah, and while Crow has faced backlash on social media for some of these comments, he's choosing to focus on the positive, which is a 23-win season and the Bobby Hurley contract extension.
Well, Kevin, maybe it's fair to say that ASU basketball is a program that could use some more dopamine?
What? Dopamine?
Yeah, I mean, the naturally occurring chemical that makes you feel good, brother. Come on.
Dude, we were just talking about stadium renovations and winning basketball games. Where did dopamine come from?
ASU football head coach Kenny Dillingham at spring practice has been an absolute blast for players putting in that dopamine. We've seen a basketball hoop, linemen kicking field goals. Here's what the coach had to say about having fun at practice.
Well, it's scientifically proven that happiness and joy releases dopamine in the brain, and when you release dopamine in the brain, you can learn at a higher rate. So it's not just me being the quirky young dude who wants to be trendy. It's actually scientifically proven that joy and happiness releases a chemical that increases the learning potential. So why would you not play to that?
All right, Ethan, I guess I understand where that dopamine reference came from now. So talk about us more about dopamine and its relation to sports. Here's Ben Paris with our newest segment titled CSL Sports Science.
Well, Kevin, like you, I didn't know what dopamine was when Kenny Dillingham talked about releasing it at practice last week when the coaching staff brought out a basketball hoop. So I took the privilege of diving deep into some medical research journals to try to find out how it could potentially give the Sun Devils a competitive advantage. Now, dopamine is a type of neurotransmitter that our body makes and releases when we do something that makes us feel good, like listening to your favorite song, eating something sweet like some candy, or maybe even playing a sport. The release of dopamine makes our bodies feel rewarded, leaving us with a sense of motivation. A 2018 study published by a group of researchers from universities across the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Germany, and Belgium cites that, quote, dopamine increases athletes' attention toward rewarding goals and strengthens their reaction to the positive feelings that they can provide. So to put all this together, I made one simple equation. Dopamine plus motivation plus a little bit of Kenny D equals results. So, according to our research, Kenny Dillingham was spot on when saying that dopamine makes us learn at a higher rate, which yields greater results. And for a team with a new coaching staff, new players, and a new playbook, the learning that happens this spring could go a long way in the fall.
Alrighty, Ben, now we know where we can get our prescriptions written by you after that report. Continuing the theme of education on the gridiron, a new offense is expected to be on display this fall in Tempe, and tight ends expect to play a big role. We now go to our Henry Dominy for how tight ends have fared so far under the first third of the spring practices.
With this wave of change that has arrived with spring practices, ASU football is looking up to some of its tallest guys for some big plays this fall. The tight ends are a position group many are looking to for a newfound impact on the offense this season. Tight ends were not used heavily under Herm Edwards, with the best season under him coming from Curtis Hodges in 2021, with only 2 touchdowns and under 400 total yards. However, after Edwards' departure and the play calling takeover by Sean Aguano for the breakout Colorado game, the tight ends flourished. The 2 top returners are Jalen Conyers and Messiah Swinson, who are looking to be Dillingham's go-tos this season. So let's break down the tight ends under Aguano versus what to expect with the new Kenny Dillingham system. Aguano, for many of the big tight end plays in this game, started with his tight end in a flex position, like we see here with Messiah Swinson. The backer goes for the blitz, and Trenton Bourget picks up the pressure and immediately passes to Messiah, who goes untouched on his 5-step slant route for a big gain. Conyers, who sets up in a similar position to Swinson, runs a stick and go, blowing by the defender who gets caught looking, and he ends up in the end zone. Although Dillingham will bring his fast pro-style offense from Eugene down to Tempe, he will hand off play calling duties to Bo Baldwin, his offensive coordinator. He will look to incorporate all of the success Dillingham had in Oregon with the talent he has in Tempe. Last year under Dillingham, Terrence Ferguson led the Ducks in receptions, yards, and touchdowns, but he wasn't the only tight end who had a big impact. In his plays, Dillingham utilizes 3 main setups for his tight ends. The split end, inline, and H-back are go-tos for his tight ends. This play from Oregon also utilizes the split end formation, as an untouched Moliki Matova goes by the cornerback who goes to cover the flat, allowing for him to blast into the end zone. Dillingham also uses the H-back formation to help with run blocking, as he uses Cam McCormick starting off the line of scrimmage for this run play, but then has him swing around and provide the 2-for-1 block. Closing out the playbook, Dillingham's tight end formation here with the split in has Terrence Ferguson run an in route, picking up a large gain late in the game. With all this talk about tight ends, Dillingham has said that his system is built for playmakers, and to play one-on-one. With the higher intensity spring practices and a new tight ends coach, Jason Mons, from Saguaro High School, the tight ends are experiencing a bit of change. However, they are still one of the personnel groups to watch out for this fall.
Leon Marchand has been in the headlines of almost every major swim publication for his breakneck speeds and historic finishes in the water this season. But this weekend, the program has a chance to make some history of their own with a chance to take home its first ever national title. We bring in Jaden Taylor for a wider view of what's on the line this weekend in the pool for the Sun Devils. So Jaden, to start things off, Leon Marchand, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, has been a major factor for the swim team. But what are some other things that have led them to success, and who's been the major contributors?
Yeah, I think the building blocks for this team really started back in 2020, 2021, where head coach Bob Bowman decided we're not going to have a season with different things due to COVID protocols and whatnot. They decided to redshirt the entire team. That was set up to get everybody another year of eligibility, as well as really harp on the recruiting. And the biggest recruit they got was a man from Toulouse, France, Leon Marchand, a freshman last season, the 2022 Swimmer of the Year on the men's side. And this season, he has not stopped a single beat. Broke the U.S. Open and the NCAA record in a dual meet up against Cal, then broke that same record just 3 weeks later at the 400 IM in the Pac-12 championships. He has been a dominant factor all season long, and Bob Bowman discussed about him. He's a guy he sees that has many similarities to a guy like Michael Phelps. And Bob Bowman, the former coach of Michael Phelps in the 2003 Olympics, there's a lot of similarities between those two. He has been a piece that has just helped out so much, according to head coach Bob Bowman. And then you add on with Marchand, a guy like Zalan Sarkani, who is dominant in the 1650, along with Grant House on top of that with some of the speed threats that he's been able to work around. And you bring together a team that got its first ever Pac-12 men's swimming championships this season. They've been moving on top of that, helping out with a lot of depth this season, and that's what's gotten them the #1 team in the country.
Yeah, still some more work left to do. 2 days left in the event, so where do the Sun Devils stand right now?
Yeah, through 2 days, they're currently in third place, 30 points down by the leader in Cal. Cal and Texas have been really the stranglehold over men's swimming this season. Really, throughout the last decade, they've been the top two. Day one was good. That was a setup for ASU. They won 2 different relays, got second in 2 different relays to start off day one in the 200 medley relay, as well as the 800 free relay. And from there, some different hiccups that we saw in day 2, but Leon Marchand was the headliner in a big way. Won the 200 IM with a 136.34, breaking his own record from over a year ago. He was a dominant factor. And looking at the standings now, Cal, Texas, Arizona State, that was an easy start off for those first 2 days for them to kind of mix around, see what they can do. But going forward, they're going to have a little more help from the depth part of this team.
What needs to happen for ASU to keep their title hopes alive? Cal and Texas, 2 dynamite programs in the water. They're kind of going up against them. So what do they have to do here now to just kind of close things out and just try to win that title and keep it alive?
So prelims for today ended about an hour and a half ago. We're going to see finals another hour and a half from now. There's 15 events to go through today and tomorrow. The weekend locks that I think we're going to see, like we mentioned earlier, the 400 IM with Leon Marchand. He's been the dominant factor, already has the NCAA record. The biggest thing for ASU is the 200 free. They got Grant House, Julian Hill, and Patrick Salmon all in the finals that we're going to see here tonight. 3 different swimmers for one team. Hasn't happened outside of one other race so far here in the swimming championships. That is going to be a big piece to add on some more points. The notables that I think are going to be needs for ASU, Jack Dolan in the 100 back. He has to find a way to squeak into that top 3. Max McCusker in the 100 fly. But the biggest thing of the entire weekend is going to be the 400 medley relay and 400 free relay. If ASU can find a way to knock up a spot and get first both in the 400 free and the 400 medley, they very well could find their first national championship in program history.
All right, well, thank you so much to Jaden Taylor for coming in once again and giving us all that update on ASU Swim. We'll be up to date, and you can stay up to date on www.cronkitesports.com.
From the pool to the frozen pond, Josh Doan recently hung up the maroon and gold and inked that professional contract with the Tucson Roadrunners, who are the AHL affiliate of the Arizona Coyotes. Doan was drafted by the Yotes in the 2nd round just 2 years ago. And to take us back through Doan's time at ASU and the impact he had on the Sun Devils, we hand it off to Matt Venezia.
Let's take a look back at some of the moments along the way that helped get Doan ready for professional hockey.
As a 17-year-old, Josh Doan announced his commitment to ASU. The Scottsdale kid and son of Coyotes legend Shane Doan was staying local, and at the conclusion of his time in junior hockey with the Chicago Steel, he would play his first season at Oceanside Ice Arena. The anticipated debut of the heir to the Doan throne came on October 2nd, 2021, in a 5-3 win against UMass Lowell. Doan had 3 assists and quickly became the centerpiece of the ASU top line and power play of the future. Josh Doan would go on to finish with 37 points in his rookie campaign, smashing James Sanchez's previous ASU record of points by a freshman. Doan was also a finalist for Top Rookie nationwide. Season 2 of the Josh Doan era kicked off with number 91 earning the C on his sweater. A leader on and off the ice, Doan was named the team's captain for its inaugural season at Mullet Arena. In true storybook fashion, Josh Doan scored the first ever goal in Mullet Arena, a 2-0 victory for the Sun Devils in the 2022 season opener against Colgate. 34 points later, including the final goal of the season, netted by only Doan himself in a 2-1 overtime win against Long Island, the captain stepped off the ice for the final time as a Sun Devil. With still 2 years of collegiate eligibility remaining, Doan decided to make the jump to the AHL by signing a 3-year entry-level deal with the Arizona Coyotes. Coyotes fans will now see their longtime captain's son continue to develop in minor league hockey with the Tucson Roadrunners. So far, so good. It only took Doan 3 professional games to score his first goal. His storied success continues to develop right in front of our eyes. For Cronkite Sports, I'm Matt Venezia.
There's some high-octane action in store these next couple of weeks for teams across the country with NCAA gymnastic championships. Our own Tia Reed is out in the field and has all the updates on ASU as well as other Pac-12 schools as they prepare for the NCAA championships.
For the second consecutive season, all 8 Pac-12 women's gymnastics schools qualified for the NCAA regionals, with 5 making their way into the top 16 national seeds. As a regional host, number 4 UCLA will host fellow Pac-12 foes number 5 Utah, Washington, and Stanford, in addition to number 12 Auburn, number 13 Missouri, Southern Utah, BYU, and Boise State. In the Denver Regional, Arizona will have to defeat North Carolina in the play-in round for a chance to compete in the regional semifinals. As for number 11 Oregon State, their semifinal consists of number 6 LSU, Georgia, and Nebraska. On the other side of the country in Pittsburgh, number 7 Cal and number 15 Arizona State will have to fight to get out of a regional that includes SEC champion number 2 Florida and Big Ten regular season co-champion number 10 Michigan State. Out of the Pac-12, Utah, UCLA, and Cal have been tabbed as the strongest contenders to move on to the national semifinals. But with national seedings and national qualifying scores above 197, Oregon State and ASU will be looking to make a statement and push through to Dallas to represent the Pac-12. After all, it is still March. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks, Tia. Moving across the street to Sun Devil Lacrosse Stadium. Under a new regime, the Devils have struggled out of the gate. And to help make sense of the team's 1-5 start, we're joined by Justin Lastertosa. And Justin, after a 16-13 win in the home opener against St. Bonaventure, the Sun Devils hit the road, taking a 5-game trip to the East Coast. Unfortunately for the Devils, they lost all 5 games during that span. What has gone into this cold stretch for ASU?
Well, Kevin, firstly, it's important to note that out of the 5 opponents ASU visited on the road, 4 were ranked teams, those being number 25 Penn State, number 24 Jacksonville, number 7 Florida, and number 18 USC. And in some of those games, they managed to hang in, where they pushed Jacksonville to overtime in a 10-9 ASU loss, while also holding Penn State to just 8 points in their outing. Despite some positives against top-level competition, there were clearly some bumps in the road to lead to the Sun Devils skidding for 5 consecutive games. And when you evaluate this losing streak, you'll see that they gave up 17 points in 3 of those performances, which definitely should raise some eyebrows for this Sun Devil squad. For the season in its entirety, ASU has been outscored by opponents a whopping 82-57, and to make matters worse, the Sun Devils have been held to just 132 shots taken, while opponents have taken 187 shots. Early season struggles were almost inevitable. They brought in a new coach in Taryn Van Thorf with no prior experience as a head coach, and the team was practically entirely revamped, with 10 contributors from last year graduating, along with the addition of a fresh new crop of young talent. Growing pains were bound to hit the Sun Devils, especially with a road trip against elite competition to kick off their season, but you have to play who's in front of you, and the Sun Devils will be returning to Tempe with adjustments to make.
Sure, and ASU will be returning to Tempe this weekend, where two conference rivals will be in town, and that of Oregon and Colorado. What can the Sun Devils do to bounce back and regain some momentum during this home stretch?
Well, one thing that will be crucial for the Sun Devils to swing some momentum back in their favor will be their ability to close out games. Arguably the biggest example of this team failing to finish games at a high level was in their performance against USC, where ASU failed to score within the last 25 minutes, while USC converted upon 4 goals alone within the last 10. This is something that comes with those growing pains, and the Sun Devils are going to need their team leaders to step up, and that's where team captains Katie Brodsky and Kaylin Buckner come in. The duo, otherwise known as KB Squared, are two players who are more than familiar with the landscape of Sun Devil lacrosse, with Brodsky being a 5th-year attacker and Buckner being a 5th-year midfielder. They've been Sun Devils through the thick and thin, and it's imperative for them to spread some of their experience to the newcomers to make the transition easier in order for them to play a consistent, efficient 60 minutes of lacrosse. One consistency throughout ASU's season thus far has been sophomore goalie Katie Valle, who sits at 6th in the country in saves per game with 11.75 a contest. The Long Island native is going to have to keep this level of play up at a consistent rate, but to make her job a bit easier, the rest of the defense is going to have to limit the amount of high percentage looks that the opposition gets. Coming back home after a long East Coast stretch, the Sun Devils will be motivated to prove that their road trip was a battle test that will ultimately make them stronger in the long run for future opponents.
All right, thank you so much, Justin, for that. That game against Oregon is just getting started as we speak, so follow for updates on social media as well as cronkitesports.com.
Let's check out some of the top plays from the week. We've got all the best action. Let's start it off on the mat at NCAA Championships with ASU wrestling legend Mikhail McGee, as he is able to avoid Dalton Fix here as he captures that 3rd place at NCAAs. Mikhail McGee able to take down Fix, a wrestler who's a 3-time champion who beat him in the last matchup, and you can see right there Mikhail going to hug Zeke Jones, embracing his coach, an Olympian and a former NCAA champion as well. So just great stuff to see there from Arizona State.
Number 2, we go to Salt Lake City at the Diamond. Isaiah Jackson, he's made a couple of highlight reel grabs already. We'll put another one. They're going full Superman again. He was in the building in Utah. A diving catch to end a Utah threat as the Utes were trailing but were threatening against the Sun Devils. Great stuff there by Isaiah.
Kevin, we've been talking about this guy all show, all semester, all year. It's Leon Marchand in the pool for Arizona State at the NCAA Championships. Man, what a race. 1:36.34 for Marchand in the 200 IM, as he has just been a terrific, terrific swimmer for ASU, and he continues to be dominant in the water.
Well, I don't know about you, Ethan, but just like ASU men's swimming, that show just flew right by. Another great edition of Cronkite Sports Live. Our thanks to all the phenomenal people and talented people who work behind the scenes to make this possible. For Ethan Tuttle, I'm Kevin Later saying so long from Studio 6. We'll see you next week for another edition of Cronkite Sports Live.